special session of the CAPS Commission. Do I call everybody's name for roll call?
I mean, you can. if
Or
you
do
want.
I just call who's here?
Yeah, you can call on people. It's
Jason,
Here.
Najla,
here.
Jenna,
Here.
Pamela, here. And
Tyler's not here.
Tyler's
Todd's
not here, Todd isn't here.
That's
I
it.
think that's it.
And I move that we discuss the disproportionate violence and discuss the CAPS resolution.
Okay. I'm sorry,
Maybe there's.
I move that we discuss the disproportionate
Yeah.
violence and the CAPS resolution.
is there a second for that?
I'll second.
I'll second it.
I'll second.
And you can do a voice vote,
Okay, voice vote.
just all those in favor.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. If that motion passes.
If any, you asked if any are opposed.
Or any opposed? That, well, everybody said aye, so. The motion passes. All right. Would anybody like to discuss the disproportionate sentence? Or does anybody have anything that they would like to bring up about that?
Well, we don't have public comment on the agenda, so I would move that we, have public comment maybe before voting on our resolution.
Resolution?
Yeah, maybe like in between A and B,
All
since we're
right,
already on A.
all right,
Would that be okay?
yeah,
Yeah, I'd second. I second that.
all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? None opposed because all of us said aye. So motion passes.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, Hazel.
Oh, I would like to share that, that CAPS did outreach with the council on this matter, because we considered it fairly urgent and, asked them to take some action. And they did, very responsively. On Monday, they released a letter, which is in our packet. And I'm not sure you all have seen it, but I think it's gonna be posted on the council website if it hasn't already, is what I was told. So they did release an open letter that was signed by 8 out of the 9 council members, and that is also mentioned in our resolution. So I just wanted to share that.
I'm not sure if it's going to be posted to the website. I'll check. It was a letter circulated by individual council members. It wasn't an action of the body of the council. So I'm not sure if it's going to be posted to the website.
Okay.
I'll check.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, if I can just, I guess, go, so I felt very strongly, I was actually on campus most of the day, Thursday, and I actually just coincidentally left right before, the police arrived, the state police arrived, because the campus police were there all day. And, then Saturday, I actually arrived just after the state police showed up. And I saw a lot of them, and, I felt very, strongly that these events were not only disproportionate and, harmful to public safety, that I also felt that, they are very much directly within the purview of the CAPS Commission as having been, in my opinion, some of the worst police brutality that has occurred in our city since I've been on this commission, at least, that I know of. And so I felt very strongly that we should address it, and so that's why I drafted this resolution, which is co-sponsored with Jason and Cammie. Well, we actually co-drafted it. So we're co-sponsoring it. And I suppose, should I read it before and then have public comment, and then we take a vote? Maybe just
Yeah.
read it out loud in case anyone, it's not that long. Do you want to start, do you want to take turns on it? Since the three of us co-sponsored it?
Sure. You want me to start?
I mean, yeah, we can just
Okay.
go around, I guess.
So, just the summary, the Indiana University administration made decisions which led to a militarized state police force violently suppressing pro-Palestinian protests held in Dunn Meadow on April 5th and 27th, 2024. In this resolution, CAPS denounces the criminalization, administrative punishment, and violent suppression of lawful political dissent, requests that Mayor Carrie Thompson and the Board of Public Safety ensure that no city resources or cooperation will be provided to the Indiana State Police that can be used to commit violence or intimidation of protesters at Dunn Meadow, and demands that Indiana University immediately cease these activities, hold responsible decision makers, and reverse punitive actions.
Whereas the commission is appalled at the videos of SWAT police and state troopers assaulting and arresting nonviolent student protesters and their supporters on the Indiana University campus on April 25th and 27th. Whereas this violent suppression of principal calls for peace, freedom, democracy, and equality by students and professors and other community members will forever stain the history of our city. Whereas using militarized police, including rooftop snipers, to intimidate nonviolent protesters and their supporters is a violation of free speech and an overuse of state force with the intent to suppress dissent. Whereas people attending an institution of higher learning should not be assaulted, traumatized, or criminalized by their university for criticizing its policies or for supporting students who do so. Whereas the IU student protesters and their supporters rallying in Dunn Meadow were nonviolent and posed no threat to safety.
Whereas peaceful assembly in order to engage in political speech is a protected right under the Constitution, and those assembled have the right to demand changes in administrative personnel, ending partnerships with Crane Naval Base, financial divestment from Israel, and equal treatment of Muslim and Middle Eastern students. Whereas Indiana State Police Superintendent Doug Carter defended the use of rooftop snipers, use of force, and arrests against nonviolent protesters used by ISP on IU campus in an interview to Indiana Public Media on April 29th, and stated that if we have to come back, then we will, but that'll be at a time that is known only to us. Whereas in the recent CAPS hosted Reimagining Safety events held on IU campus, we learned that many of the problems of US policing stem from the history of state repression targeted at particular racial and ethnic groups to further the practices of settler colonialism, genocide, and chattel slavery, and last week's use of a violent militarized police force against city residents, speaking against injustice, shows us that this history is far from over. Whereas the commission is inspired by the students and other community members who are peacefully demanding changes in institutional practices that they find morally repugnant. Whereas the commission is proud of the protesters and their supporters for remaining nonviolent in the face of police brutality and provocation, and for refusing to be intimidated into silence.
Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Community Advisory on Public Safety Commission that the commission, 1, denounces the criminalization, administrative punishment, and violent suppression of lawful acts of political dissent taking place at Dunn Meadow as violating best practices in policing and is harmful to public safety for all Bloomington community members. 2, celebrates the nonviolence of pro-Palestinian student protesters and their supporters despite facing police brutality, administrative punishment, and provocation. And applauds, and 3, applauds Bloomington City Council members Isabel P. Smith, Andy Ruff, Matt Flaherty, Kate Rosenbarger, Hopi Stossberg, Dave Rollo, Courtney Daly, and Sydney Zulik, who have issued a letter decrying the Indiana State Police's use of force at the rally and condemning the actions of IU President Pamela Whitten's administration. And 4, request that Indiana University A, immediately cease the violent suppression of pro-Palestinian protests and hold responsible the people who made the decisions leading to these actions. And B, reverse all punitive actions taken against nonviolent protesters and their supporters on the Indiana University Bloomington campus. And 5, recommends that Mayor Carrie Thompson and the Board of Public Safety create policies and take other steps necessary to ensure that no resources or cooperation will be provided by the city of Bloomington, including the Bloomington Police Department, to the Indiana State Police that could be used to commit violence or intimidation against the protesters and their supporters at Dunn Meadow.
I think we could move to public comment.
Yeah.
May I speak as a member of the public? My name is David Keppel, and I'm a spokesperson for Bloomington Police Action Coalition. I think this is an excellent resolution, and I really thank you for taking it. And I'm proud of the CAPS Commission and proud of the 8 city council members who issued a statement. What has happened at Indiana University is shocking and disturbing, but I think we also shouldn't be so shocked or so intimidated that we fail to continue to exercise our constitutional rights. I have gone to Dunn Meadow almost every day. I've been very impressed by the calm and maturity of the leadership and the people there. I think it's very important for members of the public who may not be IU students, who may not even have a passionate feeling about the situation in Gaza, but who do support civil liberties. It's important that people show up and stand in solidarity. It's not a very dramatic thing to do. It's not a very dangerous thing to do. You just go there and stand on the meadow for a few minutes each day. If a lot of people do this, it's a very powerful message to send back to the IU administration that has worked on an atmosphere of crisis and of danger to try to scare people. People don't have to be scared. Behaving with calm and dignity and not being intimidated is what can change this situation. And so I commend this resolution and thank you for the work that you're doing.
Hi, I'm Dennis Onpak. I'm a graduate worker at IU. So I've been on Dunn Meadow every day for past week. And in that time, I've seen students and faculty, staff, and community members stand up and speak out against the administration's complicity in support of a major humanitarian crisis. I've seen students chant in solidarity with the people of Palestine, and I've seen them try as hard as they can to make the best out of a terrible situation. However, in holding the administration accountable, the administration did not take well to it. And on Thursday and Saturday, I saw a militarized police response against a group of peaceful protesters that involved several arrests and many more beatings, including the aiming of a sniper at unarmed students from their student union building. The superintendent of ISPB, Carter, when asked during the actual police raids, did not know the policy that he was enforcing. He also was not made aware that the policy was made up the night before, specifically with the intention of targeting this political protest. But it didn't really matter, and he called on his officers to use their full force in attacking and brutalizing the protesters. One of my friends was pushed to the ground with a shield on him. He got a concussion from that, but the shield actually wasn't lifted off. The officer remained on top of him simply because there were other officers behind him that were pushing him forward, so he literally just could not get up. They were so strong and so forceful that they couldn't stop the amount of force that they were applying. When asked for a justification on the amount of violence that was used in this case, Superintendent Carter responded that one of his officers had their finger broken while he was beating student protesters. It has come to the point where they are using violence as a justification for its own sake, that the very existence of their ability to do these things is enough to justify them doing it. And it is unlikely that the Bloomington City Council alone will be able to hold accountable President Whitten, Raul Srivastava, or Superintendent Carter. But that's what the encampment is for. That's what this grassroots movement is for. But what is possible for the city to do is to show by example how this kind of thing can be changed. They can show that they will not support or work with ISPD, especially not provide any resources through Bloomington Police Department for the use of intelligence or any other increase of force access that ISPD will. So I thank the commission for considering this resolution, and I will pass it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you spell your last name so I can get the minutes?
Yeah, PAK.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would just have a question for our guests. Has anyone who has attended the protest, and I think that includes a lot of people here, has anyone who's attended the protests seen any violence happen by either the student protesters and or their supporters?
None.
And one thing that struck me, so I attended the protest outside Bryan Hall, and one of the speakers asked for people to lower flags while he spoke, and protesters refused. And there was a moment of tension, and it was naturally resolved. There was no need for any sort of intervention. And that kind of cheered me about the kind of community that we build.
I have not seen any violence by any protesters.
Has anyone seen any cause for a militarized police force to have been brought to Bloomington in response to these protests or encampment? Because I mean, that's actually the excuse. They don't say it's because of the protest. The claim is because it's the tents. Has anyone seen any reason that there might need to be a militarized police force? Okay.
None. I would just comment that over the years, I have tried to establish a cordial relationship with the Bloomington Police Department. And in particular have communicated both with Chief Dekoff and with his deputy captain, Scott Oldham. I had a long conversation with Captain Oldham the other day, in which, as usual, he was very courteous, but he did say something that I think needs to be challenged. He said that the reason for the heavy level of police militarization was to deal with a potential lone wolf who would be some kind of nihilistic shooter coming from the general public, who would open fire on everyone. And that is why they had deployed a sniper to be able to shoot the lone wolf. I think there's no evidence of that whatsoever. And the danger that the lone wolf will in fact turn out to be a member of the police who loses their cool in a situation is by far the greatest danger. But I think that was a statement by our deputy chief of police, and I think is a scenario that ought to be deconstructed.
Yeah, I think the commission should follow that up was that statement made to you or to the media?
Made personally to me over the telephone.
Yeah, I think the commission should follow that up and find out.
Is there any is there any objective
Because
intelligence?
frankly, it's easy for someone to, you know,
Come up with a
call-
scenario.
yeah, to claim that they've heard something or provide false intelligence
Right,
to intimidate people.
indeed.
And they don't provide snipers at football games. And if they're looking for violence, what we heard from Denizen is that the only violence was them. And so like bringing anybody there is escalating the situation from the examples we've heard.
Well, and not to decenter Gaza or decenter the protester safety, which I think is our primary concern. But I think also these events really drive home why our city needs a unarmed community responder force that is not supervised by the police department. And so I also hope we will, I hope this motivates our commission to really double down in our community safety work to get that
Right.
get that established. I mean, not that in the future necessarily the university would have called on that, but that would have been an option that's not there right now. That would have been an option that they would have had to call on to, assist in this. Mhm. Yeah, you can have a seat.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't prepare comments, so I have kind of two things, just I think that this commission might want to have some context about like the university politics that have gone on in the background before this. So I'm Joshua Pascal, from also kind of been involved and initially came here to support him. I'm also the elected bargaining coordinator of the Indiana Graduate Workers Coalition that has put out some statements about this, and I'm also sitting member of the Bloomington Faculty Council. So I think there's two relevant things to just highlight, just for consideration of the commission moving forward. First, is Bloomington Faculty Council stuff. So I'm sure you're roughly aware of the controversy about the provost office.
The
So
what?
there's-
Oh,
so
the provost.
the
No,
provost office.
I'm not aware of
Yeah,
it.
provost. So the provost is a relatively controversial figure on campus, and one of the things that the campus targeting is the resignation of the provost, particularly the mishandling of the invited Palestinian artist, Falabi.
Mhm.
During the Bloomington Faculty Council hearing, in response to that, he often uses like the deflections of security. He actually mentioned the FBI and people laughed at him for this. Nobody has ever collaborated whether or not the FBI actually had a credible threat, but rather it's kind of the masking to the security stage, justifying the kinds of actions like the ad hoc committee that changed the 1969 policy the night before the campus was initially raided on the first day, mind you, at 4 o'clock during business hours. I should also add, so that's the first thing I wanted to highlight, just for the record.
And I've also heard they didn't do an open door 48-hour notice of that meeting.
It was to the point in which Ben Robinson, one of the faculty members arrested, tried to engage the campus free speech people, and they could not provide the policy citation that had changed. That is how quick the policy had changed. Ben Robinson is a well-esteemed professor in the Department of Dramatic Studies, very active community member. It is really shocking that he was arrested that day. He's currently not in town. I should also add, as the elected bargaining coordinator of the Indiana Graduate Workers Coalition, we have put out a particular statement about this because the state police, in no uncertain terms, actively targeted one of our elected leaders who is also involved in the Palestinian Solidarity Committee, Bryce Green, who you may have heard about. So he has unilaterally received a 5-year ban from campus with no explanation why his penalty was enhanced compared to the default 1 year. And it is known that the police scanners identified him in advance as a black man with an afro and also arrested him outside of the line. So the police actually, by my own witness, I witnessed both rounds of arrests myself, came out the line, came around the crowd where he was, and then arrested him there after he had engaged in the line, right? But the line had been pushed back and they went and got him specifically after the fact, to the witness of many, including everyone here. So, I mean, I didn't initially plan to give comments here. I originally just came to support this on, but I do think for the sake of public record, these two things should be highlighted. Like this is an ongoing issue at Indiana University, one that I dealt with this entire year, much to my frustrations. And also one that like the Graduate Coalition has, as a leadership, put out a specific statement about because they did engage in racial targeting one of our
Mhm.
main organizers, which is really shocking, frankly.
Mhm.
So yeah, I just wanted to have those be on record today.
Thank you.
The spelling of your last name.
Pascal, Paschal.
Thank you.
Just to follow up, has the IU administration attempted any engagement with with your organization or the investment
Famously not.
coalition? Or any of the people who are organizing these protests and encampments we know the response that they've given, the police response. Has there been any, I guess, more diplomatic response or informed, I guess, that they've also engaged?
In terms of the graduate union, the answer is famously not. We're an unrecognized union because the administration refuses to recognize us. I will say, to my knowledge, the tents are now approved for the Palestinian Solidarity Committee, so they've gone through the new policy change that occurred to approve the
And
tents.
that's a student club, and so that is a little different. Because of the nature of how they need to treat student clubs, probably.
Yes. I mean, President Whitten has addressed this with faculty particularly. I think it's fairly obvious the faculty are deeply unsatisfied with Whitten's response. I don't have that email available right now. I would have to pull it up and forward it along. The short answer is that the frustration with the administration constantly passing the buck about who's responsible for decisions is not a new problem. It's been part of the controversy with President Whitten's administration since she took the office 3 years ago, right? It's one that I, in my 5 long years in Bloomington, have very consistently heard about. So again, like these kind of things haven't come out of nowhere from the perspective of the university community, but this is really the most egregious case because it straightforwardly endangered the lives of multiple students. And faculty.
So my name is Quan Lei, LE. Yeah, I'm also a graduate student and I was in the protest line sometimes too. And I just want to say that I think one point that should be noted is that the administration, after their response, has been sending out email to faculty, to various bodies in campus and sort of gaslighting that, we are the terrorists. And that's how they are responding to the terrorism that they think we have. And I think it's important. I think as a city, we should have on record, the proof that, this thing actually happened. Because the administration's plan clearly
The
is,
terrorist threats or threats to safety that triggered all this response.
it's trying to erasing our experience of such violence, by using whatever means that they did. For example, they have said that they engaged with a meeting with the student leaders, including the undergraduate student leader, president and the BFC, and it's purposely put the word among others to imply that, graduate students were there. And that is not true. I mean, and in fact, we have requesting a meeting directly with the provost and the president since Thursday, the first time that the arrest happened, and they have never invited to any meeting. And I think it's just important to, if you take that into context, the way that the pattern of this administration has been engaging in.
Can you spell your name for me?
So Quan is in QUAN.
And just to remind our guests, our commission specifically is chartered to advise the city of Bloomington, specifically the mayor, the council, and the Board of Public Safety, which governs the police and fire. But obviously, when it comes to matters such as national security and terrorist threats, I would hope that the fact that there was such a threat that endangered lives in such a way that triggered such a response would be something that would rise to the level that the city would have some sort of jurisdiction to investigate and try to find out what that was. I would hope, but I mean, and again, I hope that we can follow up on this as well. David?
I would just like to second Mr. Pascal's comment about the attack on Bryce Green. I've known Mr. Green for years. I have the very highest regard for him as a thoughtful, valuable leader in our community. I think that the CAPS Commission is charged to look at actions that imperil members of minorities. I think it was racist to attack Mr. Green. And I think that it's another reason that the Indiana University administration should be held accountable.
Thank you. Yeah, I saw the videos and I agree that they were totally disproportionate in a way that leads one to conclude that race could not have not been a factor in how those were conducted.
Yeah, and in our discussions and in drafting this, like in our extended work and outreach, we've talked about how anytime there's an offense, it disproportionately affects members of more marginalized groups. And so it's important. Part of the reason we're asking for this structural solidarity is that it has to come before, like what they did with changing the rules is what allowed them to justify that. And so we want them, that's what's most, I think most important is that they make that promise to not do that.
Yeah, and because of like the sort of chaotic nature of violence and, you know, including police violence, like I don't think, you know, that most police brutality is because some guy at the very top ordered it and then that guy ordered it and then someone else ordered and then they followed it. It happens in a stochastic, chaotic way. And because of that, it does the harms fall disproportionately on people of color and other people marginalized in our society. And so just bringing that force into our society, into our city, increase the risk of harm to marginalized residents, I think in a rather dramatic way, just having all those cops here with those.
And it's their mechanism too. So I'm also part of Stonewall Democrats and somebody shared, somebody who got arrested shared their story. And what stuck out to me in her story was she was being brutalized by an officer and said, "You don't have to do this. I'm not harming you. You're harming me." And it shook him enough that he stopped. But another officer came over and said, "What are you doing? You need to arrest them," and took over in the arrest. And so it's what we've been saying, the very presence of the mechanism scripts the violence.
If I may, on the racism point also, both the language of the lone wolf as well as in Superintendent Carter's interview, it's clear that there is a sort of element of this that's being portrayed as if those who are pro-Palestine are somehow Islamic terrorists. They're being equated with Hamas supporters. And this has been done in part because many of the organizers do happen to be Muslim, myself included. The use of sort of both the terrorist language and this justification for violence is deeply racist, and that is where a lot of it is coming from. I just think that it's important to know.
Our commission has passed a resolution condemning Islamophobia, and we take it very seriously as a major threat. In fact, in that resolution, it states that it's a threat to civil liberties. And I think, again, this is a great example of why.
Yeah, and it happened just ahead of this.
Yeah, in Carter's statement, he said that he heard people say we are Hamas or something like that.
What we said was Allahu Akbar, which means God is great.
Right, yeah. I mean, I'm Turkish and I'm somewhat aware. Yeah, I'm not Muslim though, but yeah. Oh, okay, and he heard it that way, maybe. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what he heard. You know, there could be counter protesters saying things as well. We don't know. We don't know. I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know what he heard. But I agree that it's Islamophobic, that is the narrative that is consistently portrayed, not only by him, but by other, I use the term loosely, leaders in our community who have spoken publicly about this. I know you've been so quiet. Do you have anything you want to add before we take a vote?
Saturday, I was able to, so I'm a student, undergrad, and I'm also a employee through the IMU, in catering. And there were multiple times when I was genuinely not able to go into work, not because of the protests, but because of the police presence. There was no way for me to access the IMU. I could not drive there. All the roads were blocked off. And I had been on campus earlier that day and seen absolutely nothing wrong. There was no aggressiveness at all in Dunn Meadows or anything like that. So whenever I go to drive to work 2 hours later and there's police cars everywhere, I'm like, there's no way it could have, sort of accelerated, heated up, you know, that much in that short amount of time. Escalated, that's exactly the word I'm looking for.
Mhm.
And then Saturday, I worked the event at the MAC Musical Arts Center.
Mhm.
And there were protesters that showed up outside of that while some guests were filing in. And, Mrs. Witten was supposed to show up at that event and give a speech. She ended up not showing up. She, called off due to her safety. I will not comment on what her processes were, what her thought process were, because I'm not her. But I saw nothing wrong with the protest outside of the MAC. I saw nothing wrong with the protest, or the encampment in Dunn Meadows. The only thing that has shook me at all during this, I will say, is the intense amount of police presence.
Mhm.
And it got to the point where I was like, not even wanting to really like step onto campus because it's intimidating, that amount of police officers. And, you know, I'm a white person. I couldn't even imagine how it would be for somebody of color, how they're feeling right now. So, yeah, that's what I have to add to.
Okay, thank you. Call for a vote.
All right,
I move we take a vote.
I second that.
all right. Jenna?
Let's vote for it.
On-
Vote to pass, a vote to adopt the resolution 2402 denouncing violent suppression of pro-Palestinian protests.
And I will second that.
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Hazel,
Yes.
yes. The resolution passed.
I think, did Jenna vote?
She said yes
Oh,
first. She
great,
voted
okay,
first.
great. All right. Okay, well, I think that finished this I think that finishes this topic, and we can, thank you so much to our guests.
Yeah.
Thank you for attending. And again, like everything was said in here is completely sincere. I am personally inspired by the level of restraint and calmness and maturity and professionalism that has been displayed in these protests. They are, I mean, much higher than I personally would be showing if it was me down there. So thank you very much for showing that restraint. Please continue to keep, please continue to keep this leadership going. And thank you, David, for encouraging community members who are not IU students or faculty to also stand in solidarity to not only protect free speech, but to protect people in Gaza and the rights of people in our community, to stand with them.
Thank you for passing this resolution.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the work you do.
Tammy, since you're here, I can have you actually sign it.
Yes.
Are you adjourned and someone moved to adjourn?
No. Okay. So, I mean, yeah, go ahead.
Did you want to continue with other business?
I was kind of hoping we might discuss the budget that we had put off a couple of meetings in a row. If anyone doesn't need to run.
I'm good.
It's not in the agenda. Probably the latest did you have?
It's in the packet for last time.
Okay,
And you are a majority of the commission right now, so.
maybe, is there any way you could bring it up on the screen so I don't need to log in to the Zoom to do that?
Let me grab it. from the
Thank
website.
you. Yeah, so we need to make a note to follow up on all these important matters. Maybe we should make a committee on it in this meeting to follow up on all this.
Yeah, like a special committee.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would be in support of that.
that's a good idea because it's temporary.
Yep.
Do you want to make the motion?
Yeah, so the motion is, I make a motion to form a special committee to follow up on the matters related to the resolution.
I second it.
And related to the events on campus, but yeah, it's the same.
I second it.
Okay,
Do we need to take a vote?
probably.
Yes. Yeah,
Yes.
Yes.
the motion passes. Wait, those opposed, there aren't any, there, all of the people here passed it, so
Well, should we call it special committee on what?
violent oppression for the police.
On police, on campus, but police violence. On.
Campus oppression, I don't know.
Violent suppression and
Violent
protests.
suppression of protests, yeah. Special committee on violent suppression of protests.
Do you know who are gonna be members at the moment?
I volunteer to be on it.
Yeah,
I'd rather not chair it since I already chair a committee.
I volunteer to be on there.
I'll be on it too.
I unfortunately cannot due to my, upcoming schedule in summer, but
Understood.
And I'll share that
Awesome, thanks.
since I'm not sharing anything else. Out of the three of us, I have the least to do, so I will step up.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, just making notes, some of the things people said.
And if you're, whenever you're ready, I'll share the document, the budget.
Okay, yeah, thanks, now's good.
Okay.
What was, he said it was the police, deputy chief who made the statement that David was saying?
Yeah,
Chief Oldham.
yeah, Oldham.
I know all of you already know this, but for the record, the Bloomington Police Department has not been involved in the, response, at the explicit direction of the mayor.
So this was passed in the outreach committee, but it's been slightly changed. Because after we passed it in the outreach committee, Jason and I met to discuss doing the Bloomington Community Safety Coalition. And Liz Granat had mentioned that she could provide us with like personal training on facilitating those. And we realized that I had forgotten to include in the budget some payment for Liz
Right.
for doing that, since she basically did it all for free last year. We'd rather not continue to ask her to just help us for free on things. So we did add that. I think that's the only thing that's been added since it was approved in outreach, but we can go ahead and I'll just read it. Unfunded 2023 recommendation for a feasibility study. And so this is also slightly, I mean, we may end up wanting to walk this back once we meet with, hopefully, we're trying to get as you all know, we're trying to get a meeting with the mayor and with LEAP to discuss the possibility of them doing it. But I think it doesn't hurt to pass this and still put the ask in, since according to Ash, our commission has never officially made this ask, which was shocking to me when I read it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know either. I thought we'd made it 6 or 8, 9 months ago. So anyway, we're gonna put it in now. I think it doesn't hurt to make the official ask.
Right.
And in fact, even if we hire LEAP, we may end up needing this money to pay them. So, I mean, I think it doesn't hurt to ask since it never officially got asked.
Yeah.
I think you presented on it in your annual report and, you gave a copy of your alternative public safety report to the council and the mayor last year. Maybe I think you also gave a copy to this administration. And so they're aware of it.
But we didn't follow whatever process is in place to officially ask them for it, apparently. Before now. I thought that was what you told me.
So what would need to happen is the way the budget is structured. The mayor meets with department heads to get the departmental budgets. So this, it didn't get on last year's budget because that wasn't something the mayor initiated. The council was the last stop for approving the budget. So, I think the mayor is going to be in the process of meeting with department heads soon. So.
I also
talking
think
about
that
this
letter we sent Mayor Hamilton that was endorsed by Charlotte Zitlow and all those people, I'm pretty sure that asked for this. Was that not an official action of the commission to ask the mayor
I think,
to fund it
you did ask for it to be funded. It just,
in that letter?
the mayor didn't, the last administration decided not.
I see. So it was, but we have put in an official ask to the mayor last year in that letter. It just wasn't funded. So we need to do it again this year with the new mayor, is what you're saying.
So, yeah, so if this gets in the budget, it would be because the mayor met with the controller and put it in the budget in the proposed.
I
That's
We
the way
did
the
ask.
process works. And then the council votes on it at the very end.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
yeah.
So we did ask, it was not funded, and now we're asking again.
Yes.
All right. Cause I'm like, no. I'm pretty sure we
We
asked.
had a whole letter and it was signed by all these people.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure we asked.
Yeah, I'm
It
pretty
may
sure
not,
we
it
did.
got denied.
I mean, I know I'm autistic, but I'm pretty sure we communicated. Okay, and then 2024 budget request. So for our current year, which we're into May now, actually today. We would like to start a community safety library. And as well as asking for shelf space. It's not in the budget request, so maybe separately, Ash, I'm not sure how to follow this up. But in asking for the budget for the library, we also would like to have some shelf space in the Allison conference room. One shelf will suffice.
And I
And
think that needs to be budgeted. I think we just need to go through channels to determine, who's in charge of that room and how that would get put up there.
cool. And then safety marginalized community outreach, payment for one peer liaison. So I guess I was thinking we might just make this like a pilot. And then if it's successful, like next year, we could ask for like twice that much and have two. So payment for one peer liaison to work 10 hours a week for 5 weeks this year. And then the Community Safety Coalition, we are asking for funding for coffee, donuts, water, bananas for a 3-hour meeting, times 3 meetings for around 12 to 15 people. And to pay for facilitation coaching from local CJAM director, Liz Granat, to train us how to lead these meetings. So hopefully, it wouldn't need to be ongoing. It could just be like a short term. And then for other general community events that we may want to have this year, we would ask for an extra $500. So the total 2024 request is $2,600. 2025 budget request, and we're only putting this in because I've heard that we need to do this because now is when we do that for them to do the budget is so that they have it in the budget ahead of time rather than asking ad hoc like we're doing now. We would ask for another $500 to add to the community safety library that we're starting this year, hopefully. Another double the safety marginalized community pilot program, assuming that it's successful. Oh, and it's got in there that we're asking for shelf space. Yeah, I should have moved that to under the 2024 part, but anyway, Ash, what that's for. And then to have 6 meetings instead of 3. So the plan is to have 3 safety coalition meetings this year and 6 next year. Because we told people that it would meet like every 2 to 3 months. And then community events, general fund again for next year. So the total request for next year is $4,200. And just to follow up, it's not budget related. But Jason and I met with Liz and she was in agreement with us that it makes sense to wait until we have had that meeting with the mayor to go forward with coalition planning. Since we've done so much work for 3 or 4 years now and not gotten
And here's.
basically any support from the mayor, if, to, you know, move forward with any of our recommendations, that at this point, we're kind of just not wasting people's time, but almost like, you know, saying, oh, come and talk to us and give us all your ideas, and it's like, for what? So we're waiting until we have that meeting with the mayor before we move forward, planning a coalition, but I think it's still good to include it in the budget, because I think we still want to do it, and hopefully it'll happen soon.
It lays out our plans for what we're going to do.
Yeah. Any comments, questions, concerns on this budget request?
I did want to point out, which I pointed out at other times, but for any kind of payment of individuals who are doing
It has to
work,
go through human resources.
depending on, well, if they're considered employees, it's got to go through HR. If they're individual contractors, that's kind of like what we did with Matthew Solomon. It would need to be a services contract that goes through legal. So those things would need to be put in place for any kind of promise for payment. I know you all know this. But
I think Liz is already in the system.
Yeah.
Like or not, I'm sure she's already. in.
Yeah, there's some, and yeah, they have to be approved vendors as well. We've got to go through our controller. So we got to go through all the departments for anybody to get paid, but yeah.
What about buying coffee and donuts for meetings?
So
How would we do that?
trying to buy anything with city funds.
Just after
You
you
have
put
to-
it on a city credit card or something, right?
Well, we still have to put that as a purchase order and have it come out of a certain like line of, so, you know, you budget, if that's been budgeted. So yes, it still has to go through our process.
Okay, but there's a way to do it. I'm sure that there are other meetings held here where people order coffee and
Yes.
donuts.
Yes,
Yeah.
it happens. It's just, we still have to go through the fairly bureaucratic process because, I mean, it's tax dollars.
Understood.
yeah.
Any other comments, questions or concerns on this?
It's well calculated and thinking ahead of what we
you.
want to do, right? Yeah, I used to be somebody who said, I don't want to see the numbers, right? And I'm about the content, but when I worked as campus outreach for my church, they said, you know, putting it on the budget gives it a visibility, right? So specifically the fact that we're paying Liz, it's not just like Liz is helping us, but we value her services enough to pay her.
And she's definitely proven her value, I think,
Absolutely.
Right.
to our
Numerous
commission,
times.
yeah.
And I've run into her in other forums and was kind of felt blessed that she would donate her time to us, right? So.
All right. Okay, well, I move, if there's no further discussion, I move that we vote on the budget, that we vote pass this budget request, including for 2023, 2024, and 2025.
A second.
All right.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes. It passes because there are nays.
There's a majority of you here and the majority cast.
Yeah.
okay.
Good thing we didn't invite the horse.
What?
Nays.
Oh, that's a good one.
Cammy got it.
I got it.
Cammy's the.
I got it.
Okay. Well, other business is necessary. I don't have any other business is necessary.
I don't have any other business.
Move to adjourn,
I motion to adjourn this meeting it's over.
second.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Your turn.
Okay, great.
So.